Hello, and welcome to the 9th episode of the Coffee with Demons podcast. This episode is sponsored by Nick Wilkinson, commercial real estate agent with Prism. My guest for this episode of the show was Allie Laing, a graphic designer local to Lincoln, Nebraska. I met Allie just moments before recording, so it was really fun to pick her brain on who she is, what she does, and why she does it with zero idea of what those answers might actually be. She was able to speak about her design work and the healthy obsession she has with it. And I personally love hearing from other creatives that have a work ethic and drive that you don't see too often. It's super awesome to see people doing dope stuff that they actually have to put time and effort into, and Allie is doing exactly that. She's a creative that's true to her craft. So without further ado, the 9th episode of the Coffee with Demons podcast with guest Allie Laing. Enjoy! All right, and we're live here. So my guest for episode 9 of the Coffee with Demons podcast is Allie Laing. Allie just walked in my door, like 5 minutes ago. We don't really know each other whatsoever, so I appreciate you coming on first and foremost. I hit up a past guest and asked him if he knew anybody who'd be right, and he gave me Allie's name, so I hit her up, and she's here. So like I said, thank you for coming on, and I guess it'll be a pretty organic conversation since we really don't know anything about each other. So tell us what you do a little bit with design, I guess, or your job currently.
Sure, yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
No problem.
So I guess technically my position right now is I'm a graphic designer at our travel agency. So it's down in the Haymarket. We focus in youth culture, so we do a lot with Adidas, Hollister, any sorts of, Fireball, that kind of thing. And then I also have my own freelance business on the side where I do like unconventional typography, merch, and that kind of thing. So
super cool. Cool. So how'd you get into that? Or when did you start design, I guess? Yeah,
I actually started designing, it's already been like 8 years, which is so crazy.
Oh, wow. So you've been at it a minute.
Yeah,
okay.
I started when I was 14. So as soon as I started high school, I initially joined the journalism program, and then so newspaper and magazine. We had an entertainment magazine, and that's where I kind of started. So my high school, we were lucky enough to have laptops, so we got all the design programs and that kind of thing, and I was lucky to find my niche literally right when I started high school, which was
super
nice,
cool.
Especially coming into college, already knowing what you wanted to do.
So did you switch majors at all?
I did not, no.
So you just graduated from UNL?
Mm-hmm.
Cool, very cool. And what was your technical degree called?
Yeah, so it was a BFA, Bachelor in Fine Arts, focusing in graphic design.
Very nice. So did you start with your job while you were in college then?
Mm-hmm. I was an intern at Arch Rival when I was a senior, and I had a couple different internships leading up to that point. So I've been someone who always loves to stay busy, and I was that insane person working 45 hours a week all through college. So I had a couple different design internships here and there at the same time, and kind of wanted to figure out what path of design I wanted to go into, and that eventually led to something like Arch Rival.
So did you ever hit any road bumps? You knew you wanted to do design, but did you ever, run into something where you didn't like it and then you kind of had to, pivot, turn around, do something different?
I wouldn't say it was as much of me coming into a situation where I didn't think that I was liking it as much as more of just getting burnout.
Right.
When you're doing school projects and working all the time, you just have to figure out ways to still get that creative energy, especially when you're always on the go and always on your computer and always doing things.
So where did you find that creative energy then?
I would say kind of all over the place. I'm someone that loves to try new things and see new places and meet new people. So I think a lot of that just comes from experiencing new things and something, even like a new artist or a new song or something like that. I get a lot of my creativity through listening to music. So something like that is really helpful for me.
Very cool. So, you'd mentioned getting burnout. Do you think that's something that you've ran into a lot, or just because you are the busy type of person that wants to work a lot?
I think it is just my personality. I think it comes down to me just feeling like if I'm not doing something that's going to help me kind of get to where I want to be, I feel like I'm wasting time, which is always not a good thing for sure. You have to keep that balance and realize that I am only 22 and I need to have time just to live and be with people and that kind of thing. So I think it's definitely just my personality, I would say, yeah.
That's a lot of people tell me I'm a super big like planner. I love to have plans
Mm-hmm.
in the future, so I just don't. I mean, it eases my mind, but I still worry about things. So I get a lot because I'm in transition. I mean, I have some part-time work, and I'm looking at more schooling, getting a couple masters. But people are like, "Oh, you'll figure it out," and I just hate that. I'm like, "Yeah."
You're right.
That's what I keep getting told, but I'd like to know. So do you have an end goal then with design? I guess we'll just talk career-wise now.
Sure. I'm not really sure what, I want my end goal to be. There's a couple different projects that even over the last year that I've done that have like opened up this whole new world for me as far as the things that I can do. It kind of started out as branding and creating like the whole idea for people's businesses, and I love working with especially like local female-owned businesses. That's kind of where I've been at for about the past 3 or 4 years now. But I would say just this last year especially, it's kind of turned more into environmental design. So mural design, I have a couple of those coming up, which has kind of shifted the way that my business plans, I think, have been focused. Screen printing has been huge for me, so anything involving typography. So I'm not sure if it's an end goal per se, as far as me being able to just try new things and kind of maneuver my way from there.
Super cool. So this might be a dumb question, but can you explain like the murals or the environmental
Sure.
stuff a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think what really kicked that off for me was for my senior capstone. I did a project where I redesigned all 50 license plates, which is kind of crazy. So I did a lot of research as far as what makes an environment appealing to different generations. And so I focused on Generation Z, which is the age group that Arch Rival focuses on. So I've had an opportunity to kind of learn a lot about them already, and I was super fascinated with it. So that was really one of the biggest environmental pieces that I've been able to do. So it's taking something, it all starts on my computer, it all starts on a piece of paper, and being able to put it all up on a wall and that kind of thing. So it's seeing those things actually not just on my screen, which I think is what made me get so burnt out in the first place.
Right.
So then, going to mural design, and I might start all that on my iPad or something, and then I'm able to project it onto this huge wall. And that's what I think is giving me the most inspiration right now.
Super cool. So yeah, that's just when I think about license plates, I think there aren't any that relate to it. They're all about pastimes or stuff
Right.
that's came and went from like our generation. So that's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for my own personal, is that available anywhere to see, or do you have pictures of it?
Yeah, it's all on my website. It's called Power of Plates. So I was on a road trip during this last New Year's. Me and my boyfriend were driving up to Minnesota, and I think we both just kind of got on this rant just about how shitty all the license plates are, and I was just being a design nerd about it, and I was like, I don't know why the heck, people aren't spending more money in all these states and everything if they want to find a way to attract all these younger people to go to a place. Like, that's a great place to start. There's thousands of cars that you drive by every day. So yeah, and then from there I was like, oh shit, I'll just do it myself. And that's kind of where it is. So yeah.
That's super cool. You find it, you're seeing that because it's like Nebraska's plates have gone backwards. I mean, they've got so simple, but something that could definitely, I feel like we, as a society, not like outcast art, but we don't use it to its full potential, like the license plate thing. Like, we could make people's, just something super simple could, improve, happiness or whatnot. But
yeah, talk about marketing tactic.
yeah, exactly. And it's crazy that you picked up on that, or you and your boyfriend talking about that, and then we're like, oh, you capitalized on this, so that's super cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a little bit about, so you said you work with like organizations that are female ran. So how do you think that those females, or do you think, in today's day and age, we're kind of going backwards as a society, especially with, what's, going on bigger picture in America, especially. So do you get a different vibe from the women that you work with? That are in those like power positions, or like you said, that run the businesses. Well, I guess what I'm saying is, do they, I love this is going to sound super layman, but like girls empowering girls kind of thing, right? So, what are their personas, or how do they carry themselves?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is these people that I meet. I don't look at them as people that are owning a business. I look at them as a friend and a mentor, and that's really what they turn into. I've had the opportunity, even this last year, to work with some incredible people. and even after that project's over, it's like I still text them, every 2 weeks
Right.
and ask advice, or they reach out to me, and it turns into this little community. And I think, to me, that's what's so special about it, is they don't look at me like she's 22 and I'm trying to better her career. It's like we're all just in it together, which is something that I think, especially in Lincoln, we do a really good job of. Everyone's so supportive of each other. It doesn't matter if they're in the same field or anything like that. Everyone wants people to succeed, and I don't think I've come into a case where I haven't experienced that, and everyone wants to be there for each other. So I think, if anything, they're all friends, and they act as like a big mentor to me, which I think is something that I had lacked previously, especially when I was younger. So I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's super cool. And you'd mentioned communities, and I know that's one thing that we've hit on this podcast a couple times, whether that's we had a guest come on, Kaylin Drulinger, and he just talked about how he was like he belonged to multiple, so like car enthusiasts, bodybuilding, and just multiple different avenues, but everybody, that has the same ideas kind of, gravitate towards each other. But like you said, Lincoln, I think, is a great place, especially to for startups or creative people, especially around the, just it being a college town and so many people are trying to come up and, succeed. It's nice to have people around that are wanting the same for you. The couple texts that we had sent back and forth, you had mentioned that you kind of were not scared, but you didn't view yourself, or you were scared how people viewed you as like a young person that didn't necessarily like know what she was doing, and that kind of like hindered your performance a little bit. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how you overcame that, I guess?
Sure. Yeah, I think, any time that you're 18 or 19 and you know that you want to be in a specific field, and that, you started a lot earlier than a lot of people did. I've been doing this since I was 14. Granted, I wasn't great back then, but, I've had a lot of experience, and I've been really lucky in that aspect. But when you're, a freshman, sophomore in college, and you have someone refer you to, let's just say it's a company that, they're very well known in Omaha, that kind of thing, and they have a meeting with you, and then they just start trying to get to know you, and they ask you your age and what you're doing, and you say, oh, I'm a sophomore in college, blah, blah, blah. And you can just see their shift in focus, and it's like they look at you and they just like all of a sudden lose all trust, because they're like, why would I pay how much you're asking if you don't even have a college education, and it doesn't matter, past projects or anything like that. So I think it was just me having to get over that hump and be, if they don't want to pay it, then they're not who I want to be doing work for. And once
How did you come to that realization? Or, was that something that, did you ever run into like these situations and it took a couple times before you were like, oh, maybe I just shouldn't be working with these type of people? Or was it like a right off the bat kind of thing?
I think it was, I found myself in that situation doubting, that price that I was going to list. And as soon as I felt that, like, I started losing confidence in myself. I was like, they're giving me this energy that's not lining up with, who I am and what I stand for. And so then I was like, all of a sudden, like, the price that I listed verbally was like half my price that I normally charge. And I was like, I don't know why the heck I just did that. And then, it gets to be confusing, and you want to get that right balance of starting and, younger and doing things for a lot less, because you're just trying to build that portfolio. But at some point you just got to be like, I know that I'm talented, which I think that was the hardest part for me to be able to verbally say and know and tell myself. So it was just, it sounds silly to just be like it was an automatic switch, but at some point it just kind of has to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people struggle with just kind of as a broad categorization, like self-worth kind of thing.
Right.
And that's, I always have, and I still tend to, I'll be in situations where I like dumb myself down, and it's just because I don't, I don't know, I shouldn't, but it's just like a situational thing. And I definitely think that, whether it be not being good enough or people thinking they're not being good enough for, whatever reason, it's a hard thing to get past, like for sure. So once you did kind of realize that, do you think that, your work not like improved, like your style improved, but how you went about it and just the productivity / I don't know, productivity improved, I guess?
Yeah, I would say it's more of, once you grow that confidence and your work starts to show it, you start attracting people that want your exact style. And so it's been the biggest blessing, I think, is just this last year, like meeting all these people through once in a lifetime projects that I would have never dreamed being able to work on. And that leads, more people that look up to that business that has that same style, and that introduces me to more people. And, I haven't had to try to be someone that I'm not as a designer, which I think is really important. And I think that's something that a lot of people, especially out of college, really struggle with. It's, they want to build their portfolio and they want to get more clients, so they take on things that don't resonate with them. And I was lucky enough to do that early on. And so I kind of got that out of the way and realized, like, I hate that. That sucks, having to work on a project where it just doesn't click and you feel like you're wasting your time because you're going to make something that you're not necessarily proud of because it doesn't reflect who you are. So I think that's, yeah.
Do you think that's a step that, you have to go through? Like you said, you went through it early. Do you think that's a step that people can, like, bypass, or is it kind of something that, and, it doesn't have to be graphic design, but, working through, kind of the bullshit or trying to find your own style or find your
absolutely,
voice?
Yeah. And people ask me a lot. It's like, they look at my work and they say, how did you figure out, like, what you are? Because people are still struggling with that. And I had this realization, I think it was about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I found myself trying to make things that I thought other people would like,
right.
Which I think is true with everybody. They want to put themselves out there to make more people view their work and that kind of thing, and it just was not working for me, and that's where I got the most burnout. I was like, I can't be doing this anymore. And so I turned all that off and I just started doing things that felt like me, and that's where that shift happened.
Yeah,
so
definitely. That's kind of what, that's been, it's easier said than done, but, like, try not to conform to the, the ways of whatever you're doing. And that was kind of my goal with Coffee with Demons anyways, is trying to, talk about the things that people weren't, kind of thing. And it's still, I get sucked back into, but just for, like, getting out podcasts, I still get sucked into, like, getting on Instagram and trying to get people to share and promote and all that sort of stuff. But that, that's kind of the avenues that you have to go down before you can, like you said, kind of do whatever you want or be truly who you are.
Right.
But even as a person, I think that, what you've been talking about just can resonate with anyone. Even, graphic design aside, it's just, crazy how, I guess we all think, or we all are in different situations, but, they kind of come back to the same roots a little bit. So with your graphic design and with your job now, you've mentioned a couple big projects that you've kind of, that have really hit home. Do you want to talk about those a little bit?
Sure. The one that I'm literally gonna, like, probably high hold and mighty for the rest of my life. So one of the biggest mentors, which I'll give her literally all the credit in the world because I think she's amazing. Her name is Alicia. So she's the owner of Wax Buffalo. So if you see my Instagram, I'm literally posting about it all the time. So I've had the opportunity to do a couple different projects for her. And ever since I was in, of my freshman year of college or whatever, what Wax Buffalo is. So I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but it's a candle company. So they're pretty known on a national level. So she kind of approached me, and her husband works at Arch Rival, and she is a part-time recruiter there. So that's how we were able to make that connection.
Cool.
And she saw my work on Instagram, and she kind of saw that, the style that I was doing is what she was looking for. So I don't know if you've heard of the Enneagram test before.
I have not.
Okay, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, to be honest. But it's a personality test. So pretty much if you see any woman, there's some boys that take it too. I wish that more would take it. But if you see, like, them say they're a type 2 personality. So there's 9 different personalities that people get put into categories for. And then each one of those, like, you can kind of break down how you are in different situations, and it kind of gets to the root of who you are as a person. And I've taken a lot of personality tests. I'm guilty of getting sucked into those, but everyone that I've talked to, it's like that's real, and it really hits home with them. So I'm going to take a quick...
No problem.
I'm not used to talking this much. I'm always on my computer with my headphones on. Yeah, so she actually met up with me and wanted to pitch the idea of doing an Enneagram candle line. So she did all the research, she came up with all these scents, and she let me brand the whole thing. So yeah, it was pretty awesome. We put together a bunch of mock-ups. I got to do all these patterns and quirky, unique designs for them. And she actually, I think she got them in like Oprah's gift guide and like all these really
cool.
awesome things. So I like got that text and I called my mom and I was like, holy shit. Like, it's just crazy. And, you know, meeting someone through a mutual person or even at work and just saying hi. I mean, I'm so stoked for those to come out. I think it's like middle of October. So
To be on the lookout.
Be on the lookout, yeah.
That's super cool. So when you do like achieve something like that, do you think that the motivation even comes harder than from like a failure, or is like a big success? You're like, oh, I want to keep going. Like, this is super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, if you were to tell me 2 years ago that, you know, when I was just following a wax buffalo on Instagram, that opportunity would come, I would just like be like, I don't even know what the heck you're talking about. But it kind of just sets the standard for, you know, my next goal. And it's, you know, even if it's just doing another project with her, I would count that as a, you know, an even bigger success. So I think it shows me how not easy it is, but just being a good person and meeting people and that kind of thing and doing work that feels like home to you is really what brings those opportunities back.
Yeah, I 100% agree. You had mentioned like just a quick timeline of 2 years, you know, or that you had been following them for a while, and I think that's a lot of people's problems is they don't like long-term goals, or they want things like now, and if it's not now, then they're not going to do it. And that you can see that in people's like daily work life. So they'd rather do work like a 9 to 5 that they don't really care about, instead of putting, you know, months and years into something that they might or might not get like a reward out of. So do you just want to testify a little bit to, like, I mean, you said you've been doing this 8 years, so was there ever a point where you wanted to stop and you were like, this isn't worth it, or I want to do something else?
Yeah, I think, you know, not even just as a designer, but anyone in the creative field, they're going to compare themselves to literally every single person. I'm sure you, even with the podcast, you're just like always looking for ways to compete with them. And, you know, that's a really unhealthy habit to get into. And so I think it's, you know, sorry, I just went on a tangent. I forgot what you asked.
No, yeah. I mean, just about like the timeline of,
the short-term goals. Yeah. I remember. Okay. Yeah. So it's as soon as I stopped, you know, looking at other people and comparing my short-term and long-term goals to what they were achieving, then I was like, I can't compare what I want to accomplish to what this person, you know, already has, because that's just not the way the world works. So I'm a big believer in setting these teeny tiny goals that are inevitable to happen, because just by knowing that you reach them, it just makes you feel like you're in the right direction. And it was kind of funny. I actually posted this on my Instagram story. I think it was like 3 weeks ago or something. But my planner, I'm like, my planner's my Bible. Like, if I don't have it, I just go crazy. Right. And so it's a pretty, you know, intense planner from TJ Maxx, if I must say so myself. But it has like a breakdown of different goals I want to accomplish, and it's a 24-month planner. So I was just like scrolling through like past months, and even I think it was, like last December, my goal was to have like 300 followers on my design account. And it's, you know, each month it would be grow like by 25, and just these tiny little goals. But looking back, it just makes you smile, and it's just like, that's what was important to me, and that was my biggest, you know, thing that I wanted to work for, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the little things snowball into big things, and then, you know, it just keeps going. But I think, and just like taking a minute to stop and like you said, just look back, even though if it's, for some people it might not be a planner, just like seeing that, I did this, like, and I'm still here and like doing it. For me lately, it's been, you know, the same kind of thing with the Instagram, like with the Coffee with Demons Instagram. Like, it just grows little by little, and I'm like, oh man, like this is like actually happening. And then just thinking about, you know, what it could be, and you know, just it motivates me, and it scares me a little bit. So I think both of those things are kind of good as well. So about the projects and like the big ones that you did, we talked about the Wax Buffalo one. That one's super cool. Was there any big projects that were set to be big that kind of backfired or you failed on?
I think there was one point for sure where, to me, a big project was for the biggest company that I could get, and the biggest paying one. And I wouldn't say that they were a failure, but it was one of those ones where it was an opportunity that came along to do, a pretty substantial branding for, a company that was back in Omaha. And so I took that and I jumped at it because I was like, that's going to be great. That's going to be great. It's for my, just meeting new people, and that could lead to other different projects. But it was one of those that it was just like, gosh, now I have to work on this, and it doesn't fit who I am. It was very corporate, but sometimes you just do those things so it can support your fun hobby, I guess, is what you want to do. So I don't know if I've had any that I would say were unsuccessful, as more just didn't really make me all that happy. But
so with some designs that you do you think that some are like make you unhappy in a sense of you think you could do better? I guess, like, is there some, or do you only put out your best work? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I feel like I'm totally guilty of only putting out my best work. Who I want to be is the work that I put out. And there's a lot of projects where, you do the grunt work and all these things, and you make something for a company and you're super, super excited about it. And then they show, CEO and all this crazy stuff. And then they come back with like this dinky little sketch that the CEO drew on his like notepad paper. And he just like slides me it and he sends me a picture of it. He's like, no, this is what I want. And it's like, then why the heck are you,
Right.
Which you happily do it because that's what you're hired to do and all this stuff. But it's more of just like, I know I can make something better for you, but, and you're given the chance to still do it. So that's still a blessing no matter what. But, that's kind of what made me realize like there's better things out there. And even if it's not the best paying job, it doesn't matter because you're still doing something that you don't dread.
Exactly,
like when you wake up in the morning.
And that's,
so.
I wish more people would, chase those dreams and do, and just do what makes them happy instead of, living for the weekends or living to, do whatever they're not doing during the week, I guess. So I don't really know how design works, but is there ever, like, do you ever design something and then they're like, oh, we don't like it, you're done type thing?
I've never had anyone say that they don't like it and like ghost me. Actually, that did happen once. They didn't not like it. We got through the branding process and then they just like dropped off the face of the earth, which always sucks. And that's the one thing that as a creative it really, really sucks because a lot of people don't realize like this is your life and that's you put all this time into it and and just to kind of disappear, it really, really blows. But there's always times where people just change their minds, and that's just honestly the worst because you don't want to be like, well, that's going to cost a lot more to completely redo it again, so you just redo it again and you deal with it. But, the older that I'm getting, I'm knowing which situations to avoid. But I think that everyone has to go through that. It's a learning process, and you figure out what works and what doesn't work, and red flags to just run the opposite direction.
Right.
So
yeah, that's super cool. I mean, everything that you kind of just said there is just like you said, like learning from whether that be successes or things that didn't work out, but just taking it day by day kind of, and just like I said, learning from it. So I think that's super cool. So another one of my questions, and it's kind of just about design. How many do you think you've done? Like, whether that be, I guess for anything from the jump, for friends, companies, like whoever.
Oh gosh, like brandings or just projects?
So I guess explain a branding. I mean, would that just be like logos kind of thing?
Yeah, I always offer a couple different packages. So it's whether you want me to just create a logo for your company or you want to completely build it out. But gosh, if you were to ask me to put a number on it, I literally don't even think I could count.
It's up there then.
Yeah, I would say it's probably like over 100, 150, which is pretty wild.
So
but
go ahead.
A lot of that is, they're not all like professional. A lot of that is me, I'm always someone that's not going to say no if a friend wants me to help them out with anything. So it's just a lot of, projects here and there too.
How many hours do you think you put in?
Years.
Yeah, that sounds about
years,
right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, I definitely have some more questions. We're going to take a quick break, and then we will be right back. This episode of the Coffee with Demons podcast is brought to you by Nick Wilkinson, commercial real estate agent with Prism. Nick Wilkinson, aka the Commercial Real Estate Guy, is a Lincoln-based commercial real estate agent devoted to helping businesses find a home. If you are a first-time business owner looking for your first location, or an experienced veteran looking to expand your operation, Nick Wilkinson can help. Call or text Nick at 308-539-4995 or reach him via email using nick.wilkinson@prismne.com. Reference the Coffee with Demons podcast to receive $100 cash if you sign a lease using the service of Nick Wilkinson. Again, thank you, Nick, for your support, and this episode is brought to you by Nick Wilkinson, commercial real estate agent with Prism. Okay, so during the break, my wonderful Coffee with Demons teammate and friend Jacob had mentioned a little topic to us that we're going to jump into. So what do you think, or what's your view on how you interact with, older people? I mean, you are working with big companies and, they're not usually ran by kids our age. So, and, we're not even kids anymore, but we are definitely young adults. So do they look at you different, or how do you, go about merging that gap that they think, whether it be we're lazy or we're super about tech, just all these misconceptions that they have about our generation, I guess.
Right. I'll start out with the whole technology aspect, because I think especially through working at Arch Rifle, it's something that I've been able to get a lot of insight in, just through interviews and, culture pieces that we do. We get the opportunity to talk to a lot of people about that. And there's this one quote that someone said for a project that we're working on right now, and it was from this guy. I think he was, a little bit younger than me, but he said, what adults don't know is that we're always on our phones, but it's because we're always planning about like the future and about their goals and, planning movements and that kind of thing. And I think that's the best way that I can explain it is, yeah, we get a lot of shit. Like, I get a lot of shit from my grandma for, like, because she, I whip out my phone for, like, 10 seconds at, like, through the course of, 3 hours or whatever. And it's, it's, kids are always on their phones these days. And it's like, give me a break. But I think that's something for sure that I don't think they know, is that we have all these plans and goals. And that's just kind of the way that part of our generation has grown up. And that's the way that they work towards them. I don't always think that's healthy. Right. And I think it's really important to find that balance, but I think that's a good thing to touch on too.
I don't really think there's a way around it anymore, at least. Like, adults up to, a certain age, and except that, that the older generation that just don't know how to use the technology, I guess. Right. I mean, I looked around at work today, and, people are still doing things, but they're always, on their phone as well. And I just don't think it's something. Honestly, I had this talk with myself, man. I was just like, yeah, this is how we are. I mean, this is how we live. There's no going around it. There's no not being on your phone. Like, you can not be on your phone, definitely, but you have to be for, to, I guess you don't have to be. And I'm sure there's somebody out there that's, you don't have to be on your phone. But I mean, for messages, emails, like you said, just right. to be on top of the ball. It's kind of, just the way the world works kind of thing.
And I do think that, they don't necessarily look at us in a way that we're not as driven or anything like that. I think most of them are hopping on the train with us. I mean, right. My grandma's my favorite person, and literally she's my number one fan. She shows up at everything. She buys 10 of everything. Like, she's just cool. The best. And, she kind of realized that that's how me and my cousins and everyone communicates. So we took her to the store and we bought her an iPhone, and she's figuring out how to text and everything. And I think it's just they maybe in a way feel left out because they feel like they weren't given the same opportunities to really start something that they, maybe always wish that they could have. Because for us, we can start anything that we want just through a freaking Instagram account, exactly. Which is insane to me. People are, becoming DJs through an app on their phone, and they're becoming crazy popular on, SoundCloud or anything like that. It's like they're giving all these outlets to express themselves in a way that, my mom, my grandma, my dad, they didn't get.
Right. If you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. Yeah. So, and just about, I think a lot of, and I definitely, I'm a hypocrite because I definitely have talked about social media, the internet, our phone use and whatnot, but there are upsides too, and it's kind of like how you use it. So you can either use, we'll just say Instagram, you can either use Instagram, to glow, to boost your ego, to just post pictures like, hey, I'm doing this, even though you're really not. or you can use it, like you said, like as a tool to really, branch out, connect with people, like touch people's lives kind of thing. So it's a, double-edged sword, but it's, what you do with it kind of thing. And I think a lot of people just need to take a step back, and they're like, maybe I'm the problem because I'm thinking negatively about it kind of thing.
Right.
You had mentioned that, and even in the question, it was kind of how this older generation looks down on our generation. And in the, when we had just chatted over messages, you had talked about, finding a friend group, or not finding a friend group, but just dropping people off because they weren't on the same journey as you, or didn't really have the same, not even the same journey, but, just had different goals in mind, or were on a different, path in life. Do you want to kind of talk about that and how you did separate yourself from them, and how you knew, or if you knew, or if it just kind of was like a realization? Sure.
I would say that one of my best and worst qualities is the fact that I feel like I need to be such a people pleaser. I hate when there's any negativity or like negative energy between me and another person. It drives me crazy. And half the time that's just my anxiety being like, oh, there's an issue, and there's never an issue. But I had a lot of those situations throughout college where, there's not a lot of people that can really understand the fact that, I want to make sure that my grades are really, really good to keep a scholarship, and then still work 45 hours a week and still try to find time to be a college student and, be with people and that kind of thing. And most people honestly did not take that very well, that the fact that I, had to pass up things because I had to stay at work till like 11 p.m. Or I couldn't go out because, I had this client project that I had to get done, and that's something that's really important to me. And I was able to find, a really great group of people through that process of being okay with it. You don't have to be friends with everyone. You don't necessarily have to keep everyone, right next to you as your biggest supporter. And not everyone's going to be, okay with what you're doing, or necessarily understand it or want to be a part of it. So
definitely. Yeah, and I think, and this is weird because I just kind of had this conversation with myself a couple days ago as well, as speaking on the people-pleasing aspect. It's almost like people get mad at you, or just because, I don't go out and drink a lot. It's not because I'm trying to look better or be better than anybody else. It's just simply because I don't, that's not my, style. I'd rather hang out at home, and it's like if I get asked to do that and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to like kick it at home tonight. Right. And they're like, oh, whatever, dude. So it's kind of like people, even though I'm trying to be a better person, or not a better person than them, but just a better me, kind of do my own thing and, make myself happy. It's like people take that out on you, kind of just in, different situations, and definitely with different, I think people who do that, like you said, there are people who don't and understand and are on, or I hate to use the word conscious, but, just more aware, and they're like, okay, they get it. And then there are people that are kind of small-minded, don't really only think, one way, and they're like, they're set in their way. You can't really do anything about it. So.
And I love Nebraska. It's where I grew up. I've been here for 22 years now, but I think that's the reason that I want to get out so bad. And it's people here, me and Alex talk about it all the time, and it's people in Nebraska, like, if you want to hang out, you drink, and like that's just kind of what people do. There's a very small group of people that's not necessarily true. And yeah, when you're in college, sometimes that can be fun, but it also gets really old, and it's, when you have all these things that you want to accomplish, sometimes you just want a really great group of people that you can just chill with, and you can both work on things with, and even if it's literally doing nothing. And I found it a really, a great group of friends and people that are like that. And I think, you have to be okay with wanting to better yourself. And yes, you can still do whatever you want. I'm not saying do one thing or don't do it, but it's, if people aren't going to be supportive just because they're very stuck in, maybe it's just that Midwest mindset that maybe I have a little bit of, angst towards, because I wish that I didn't have to still, necessarily be around it. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. Just, like you were saying, it's one of the main things to do is, drink or, get altered. And it's like I start starting over. It's just hard when you, like, that's the only thing that you have in common with people.
Right. Oh,
And
that's exactly what I was trying to say, but I
Right.
rambled about it for like 30 seconds.
Well, I took off on a wrong path as well. So, but just like not having anything to do but get messed up kind
Right.
of thing. And that's just, yeah, like it's super cool you found. And I'm assuming that like the work environment that you're around in your actual job is just like a bunch of young people like doing rad shit as well. So
Right.
I think that's super cool. And, you know, that's one of the reasons I had Gage on is because he was just so, he was just so driven to do, you know, his thing and be around those successful type people. And I think that's the environment that I think we need to breed instead of shame, kind of like I was saying, like if I want to stay in and work, I want people who want to be like either A, okay, yeah, go do that. I don't have work to do, so I'm going to enjoy myself, or B, like, okay, let's get after it kind of thing.
Right.
So, and then the people who are like, oh, dude, whatever, it's the weekend, those are the people that I just, you know, they can be a good person. We can still be friends, but we're just, you know, not on the same wavelength type thing. So, getting back into a couple design questions and just, you know, how you find inspiration and what, you know, kind of fuels your fire. I guess switching directions completely, really. What motivates you, or when do you work your best, I guess?
Yeah, I think I kind of told you about this a little bit before we officially met today. But definitely the biggest thing that motivates me as far as a work environment goes is going to be music for sure. I all the time have these like big ass ugly headphones on at work because that's the only way that I can really concentrate. Otherwise I can't focus and I get involved in all these conversations, but I always have music going. Sometimes a podcast if I need a little bit of a mental break for sure. But yeah, definitely that.
What, any certain type of music? What are you into?
Yeah. I really love just like, I feel like my style is very unorganic and it's very unconventional. So, you know, I don't listen to like a lot of hip hop, rap, anything that you really listen to on the radio. I do love country. But I love, you know, Chelsea Cutler, John Bellion, Hippocampus, a lot of alternative indie groups I think are really awesome. And so it's whatever I'm listening to that's going to impact the project that I'm working on. So if I got this really rad project for Adidas that I have to work on, you know, I'm not going to be listening to like some slow jams for John Bellion. You know, I'm going to pick an artist that I know is going to be able to kind of fit with that mood of that project, which I think, cool. I mean, it's a shame I can't sing for shit because I'm like, you know, I love music so much. So I've got no talented musical bone in my body, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, just, I think music's awesome and it's a great outlet or medium or just, you know, mental, you know, kind of fuel or inspiration for people, whether they're making it or listening to it. I think, you know, it's one thing that the world has in common. Like everyone likes music.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you don't, you're weird as shit. But this is completely unrelated to Coffee with Demons or the podcast at all. But you'd mentioned an artist, and his first name's Quinn, or they.
Oh yeah, Quinn 92.
Oh, is that how it is?
Okay, I think
we've
like
gone back and forth.
Yeah, it's Quinn 92 for sure.
So I thought it was like Quinn X blah blah blah. Jacob said it was Quinn C. So Quinn 92.
Quinn 92.
All right, I'm glad that's cleared up. Yeah, he's a very good artist.
Yeah, I love him. He's great.
So you talked about, you know, like listening to music while you do your work and whatnot, and I think it's, like I said, I think it's super cool that it kind of changes the genre to, you know, what you're doing. As there, you know, do you have any tips for anybody else who is like looking for motivation, not just design work, but anything besides music that's helped you, you know, and you don't have to be like doing your design as the inspiration's coming in, but anything that's like sparked your interest that you're like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that I really fell in love with back when I was like 15, 16 was just going to restaurants, which sounds super weird now that I actually just said that out loud, but like being in an environment that's completely branded. I mean, everything from like the sign from when you walk in, how that's made, and then that's going to set the tone for how you walk into a place, and the menu board, the happy hour boards, you know, the signage on the wall, everything from like the tables, like the way that it feels together. That's actually the first thing I remember. I was in Plank downtown in Omaha, and I just am obsessed with that restaurant just because of the whole way that it feels, the menu, that kind of thing. So I would say just go to different environments that you don't always go to, or that you do go to, but you're always on your phone, you're not paying attention, and just put it away. I love going to, my mom and my sisters and I, we always go on little road trips to these tiny towns, and that's sometimes the most fun. You just go to like this dinky little store and you find like a really cool vintage postcard, or you see this old brick building that has, signage from 100 years ago, like that was painted on it. So I think just honestly put down the phone, which I know is really hard, especially for me. That's always, checking my DMs, like communicate with clients, that kind of thing, posting on it, and just give yourself the chance to like look at the environment around you, which is super basic. But
so, well, I mean, it seems basic, but to a lot of people, I mean, for you especially, when do you think, or did the stars like kind of align for you, in a sense of you started to pick up these things, like you liked the whole branded idea of the restaurants, like the things that were aesthetically pleasing, how things went together. Did you know you wanted to do graphic design, or did you kind of like put two and two together and you were like, oh, maybe I should like go down this route?
Honestly, I knew that I wanted to do design, and I still remember my first magazine spread that I ever made. That was the first thing that I ever did on any Adobe program, but it was my freshman year of high school. And since then, I was like, oh, like, this is really, really cool, and this is really awesome. And, like, since then, all through those, like, first 2 years of high school, I spent every waking moment in my history classes, sorry for all my teachers. But I was not paying attention in AP US history. I somehow managed to, like, pull off whatever knowledge that was sinking in through, me trying to learn the pen tool and stuff like that. But, I became like obsessed with it in like a really, really good way, and it was really good for me. And it was one of those things where I was always downloading fonts. I was memorizing fonts because I wanted to go out, to stores and be like, oh, I could name the font on that t-shirt. And like I would nerd out in front of my friends. They're like, you're so freaking weird. Like, who are you? But yeah, it's one of those things where that was just who I became when I was 15, and I've always been that way. So
any advice to people who might not know yet? I still don't know what the hell I'm trying to do with my life. I know that I like to make people happy because it makes me happy, and I know I like to be happy, so I'm kind of just doing whatever I can to check those two things off. But for people who, don't have a career path or don't know what they want to do, is there anything that you'd say? I mean, because you seem not consumed in a good way, obsessed in a good way with design, and I've just never felt that about anything. And if I have, it's for like a short period of time, and then like you said, I get burnt out on it, and I'm, looking for the next thing kind of thing. So, I mean, when do you know that it's the right thing, or do you? I'm assuming that graphic design is who you are and what you want to do.
I think it's a matter of getting a little lost before you can figure out who the hell you are, and I think that's a really good thing to know that, you see people like me who I honestly just got lucky. Like, that's what I tell people. I'm like, I have no idea how. It was my older sister, Kate, so she's going to be like, yeah, you called me out, and, like, I knew you were always thankful for me, but she got me to sign up for journalism in high school. Had she not done that, I don't know what I would be doing right now. I was always into painting and that kind of thing, so I could have gone to school for that, but I don't know if I would have ever, thought to even try that out. So
journalism was kind of like that, that door into Narnia.
But I hated writing, but she was like, I think you'd like designing, because that's what she did a little bit, and so signed up for that. So honestly, just meet new people, talk to people, and if you even see someone that you don't know that's doing something you think is really dope, just like message them and be like, hey, I think what you're doing is really cool. Can we grab a cup of coffee? Can I buy you a beer? Like, can I maybe sit on, like, if they're a videographer or something and you want to sit on a project, like, they would totally be down to do that. If someone ever said that to me, I'd be like, absolutely, that's so cool. So I think don't be afraid to call out to people that you think are doing really awesome stuff, because that could, even if it's not that thing, there could be a part of that project or a part of that, opportunity that you think, oh, I could have some sort of interest in that.
That's kind of what I've been trying to do, not for myself, but for, like I said, I like to help other people. So for kind of just other people, and now that I have this like platform that I can, share, even though it might not be to a ton of people, I definitely like the podcasts that are like based around mental health, and I think that mental health is a super important aspect to talk about, and especially today's society when it kind of gets pushed under the rug. But I also want to highlight these people doing dope shit that somebody else might see and they're like, oh, that's cool, let me try, or just hear these stories about how people fall in love with things and they can actually like what they do, or they can enjoy the work, and it doesn't have to be they don't have to hate waking up kind of thing.
And I would say don't feel bad if you're not there yet. And I meet so many people and they give themselves such a hard time because it's like they're my age, and they're people that I hang out with a lot, and they're like, I don't know what the heck I want to do. And it's always hard to compare yourself and be like, well, she's got her shit figured out, but you don't know that she really doesn't have her shit figured out. So you're never too late, and don't shut down completely and just go work the 9-to-5 that you really dread for 20 years, because I see that with so many adults that I know, that they just were like, I didn't have the balls to like start something, or I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I just put it under the rug, and they never really like dove a little deeper to kind of figure out what that is. And if that's not the route you want to go down, that's totally fine. But for those people that feel like there's something more, I would just say don't feel like you're too late to kind of figure it out.
Definitely. And there's a couple things that I want to say after that. Like, first and foremost, there's no, or like you were saying earlier, you shouldn't compare yourself to other people, because everyone's situation is different. So even though someone could be it kind of just goes back to the classic scenario of like, you see an older person in a college class, like that's all good, let them figure that out and do what they want to do, kind of thing. Another thing that I was going to say is just about you had mentioned, well, I guess it kind of plays into the scenario of just doing a lot of stuff is what I'm just do different things until you find one that sticks, and try stuff out, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So are there avenues that you still kind of do outside of graphic design that you like to do as hobbies, but not as frequently, or it's not as hardcore?
I love to paint. That's something that I wish I had more time to do. I love oil painting, that kind of thing. But it's one of those parts of life that it's like, when am I going to find the time to do that? So I need to be able to sit down and spend more time to do that. But I recently started spinning classes, which have been super fun. Just finding new ways to honestly get away from my computer has been really, really good for me. Meeting new people, hanging out with my family, that kind of thing. So I'm always kind of, if I'm not working, I'm still doing stuff.
Right. So do you feel resistance ever towards your graphic design, or like you don't want to get on your computer and do something, like a project's daunting, or a design just isn't working and you just want to put it off, but you have to make yourself kind of go back and do it?
Yeah, for sure. There's times where I definitely just have to take a break, and I know that threshold of either I'm going to want to snap my computer in half, or, I need to just put it away for, a day or two. There was a time where design and I did not have a good relationship, and there's some people that know this, some people that don't. I got into a pretty gnarly car accident back last December. And so I was driving to go visit my best friend, Sarah. This is like the first time I've ever talked about it. If I get anxious and my voice starts shaking, you know why. I was coming back from Wayne, and it was super snowy, icy. It was just awful. And my mom told me not to go, so I was like, screw you, I'm going anyways, and I will never do that again, because they always do know best.
Yeah, that is for sure.
But yeah, slid off the road in a tiny town, knocked over an electrical pole, my car battery flew out 30 yards. The officer was like, I don't know how you literally are not dead right now, that's really hard to hear.
Oh, definitely.
Had a couple of fractured bones in my wrist, 2 surgeries. It was not good. So for 7 or 8 months, I was in a cast with my right hand, which is my dominant design hand, which really blows for anyone that wants to paint, wants to design. So I had to completely switch left-handed. That was during the time when I was at Arch Rival, so my workload was a little bit heavier from what, especially with my senior capstone, doing all those license plates. I think all but one were done with my, left hand, and knowing your skills but not being able to do it, when you've got this big-ass bone stimulator attached to your right hand and having to do it all with your left. It sucks. I didn't want to do it. I spent a lot of time just like really pissed off at, life, which how can you not? But, I got my nose pierced. I dealt with it. I found ways to cope. And, it's one of those things that it sucks, but you go through it and ultimately you come back better from it. And, now I'm ambidextrous, so that's pretty cool.
Are you really?
I would say from a design standpoint, yes.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think being, you definitely don't go get in a car wreck to push yourself, but, your boundaries are pushed.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, and so do you think there are people that, might take a step back and, like, either quit design or something happens to them and they just kind of give up? And if you do think that, like, what's the difference or where's the disconnect from those type of people to, say yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference would be, if you're an adult and design was your side hobby and you had a different job, whatever, you might just put that aside for those 8 months and you might just deal with your shit and you might go to work and you might try to mentally heal from all that stuff. But for me, it was like, there's not an Allie without design. Like, that's just the way that I feel. That's how anyone that knows me and knows who I really am would say the same thing. I mean, I was super lost during that time. And I slowly was able to kind of build up back, where I was and all that kind of stuff and my attitude towards the work I was doing. And I ended up, like I got out of my cast the same day as my senior capstone show. And I was so excited, which is so crazy. My doctor told me not to do it, but I took my cast off anyways. It was just a splint then. But, that to me was like the day that I put that shit behind me because I was at my show. I had people from work there. I had all my family there, my friends. Literally everyone that I care about, they were there, and I got to see like all these license plates up on the wall, and I finally like couldn't move my wrist, but I had it back and I could actually see it. So that sounds kind of silly, but that's where I was like, okay, it's time to literally be okay and move on. So
that's super cool, and I think that's I think that's awesome. You persevered through that and just kind of realized that the dark times will come to an end, and then whether that be. And I think a lot of people, like you said, you recognize that, and then you said to yourself, this is it. I'm going to be better from here on out. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of wait for, the universe or whoever they, whatever higher power they believe in. I think that they look for those, like something is going to radically happen in their life, and, the decision is going to be made for them. And it's so much of this, everything in this life is, you create your own universe type thing. So I think just my message to people from that is, sometimes you just got to nut up and do it kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So.
And don't drive in the snow.
Don't drive in the snow.
When your mom tells you no.
For sure. Yeah, that's scary. Supposedly this winter is going to be horrible.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not driving ever again.
Right. So in Omaha, I mean, this has nothing to do, but in Omaha, I mean, the streets are like hilly as hell.
Yeah.
So was that when you were growing up in high school, were there ever bad days that you were like, I ain't driving?
Actually, no. I walked a lot in high school, middle school, and that kind of thing. But, we always had like these little 2-wheel drive cars. We never had anything big, and it takes something like that for you to actually be like, oh, this is really not safe and not a good environment to be in. But no, my mom would always be like, you really need to stay home this weekend, and she's gonna be so proud of me that I've actually learned that by now. But
it takes sometimes it takes like a slap in the face like that to,
for sure,
to get there. So another design question: when you talk about like using your hands, and I know you do a lot of stuff on your computer, but do you draw out things before you like put them in or take pictures of them and put them into the? I don't know how you do it. But.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways that I'll do it. If when I was in school, but I was in class and I couldn't be on my computer, that's when I would start drawing. I do always have a sketchbook with me, so sometimes I do that, but honestly, a lot of the times I just like to start directly from my computer. It's a lot easier with mistakes.
Right.
But a lot of people have to they sketch things, and that's how things come to fruition. For me, it's like I'll be walking outside and I'll think of something, and then I'm like, oh, that's the the type treatment that I want to do. So then that's like, oh, I just get on my computer and I do it. So I think people have different avenues, and for me, it's just kind of whatever is convenient,
yeah,
I guess.
I mean, That's like you were saying, or just going back to like pulling things from your environment and seeing like the restaurant type thing, then just noting it, and you're getting around it, like you said in class, you're just doing it basically.
Yeah.
You're doing what you got to do to continue what you love, and I think that's, once again, props. We'll take a little break, hear a word from our sponsors, and then we will be right back. What's up, everybody? It's Johnny. I hope you enjoy what you're listening to. And I just wanted to say, if you want to be a sponsor for the Coffee with Demons podcast, we would love to have you. Shoot us an email at contact@coffeewithdemons.com, and we will get right back to you. Thank you. So, one of the main things, and I've said this on the podcast before, is like when I did, come up with Coffee with Demons, and then I talked about doing a podcast, and, I was talking with one of our mutual friends, actually, Daisha, and she was like, it'd be cool if you called the podcast Inspiration and Empathy, and I've always wanted, it's always been in the back of my mind, and I was going to call it that because, that's what I wanted. I wanted people with an empathetic side who are doing things that inspire other people as well. So I guess one of the last questions, and kind of how we'll wrap this thing up, is, what, not what inspires you, but how do you look to inspire other people, or how do you look to leave a lasting impact on the world, or is that important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely something that is one of the main reasons that I wanted to start so young, was to just show people that you can. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, especially when you're in school, and there's a million excuses as to why you can't do anything. But, especially, I don't have any younger siblings or anything like that. I have some younger cousins, but I have a lot of, people in my life that I think, in a sense, I looked up to a lot when I was younger, that kind of paved the way, especially my dad. He's a super talented metal artist and that kind of thing, and he never hindered his creativity. He never let that get in the way of, having to go to work and only doing that, but he always showed that, you can do it. So I think I had those people to look up to when I was younger. So honestly, even if I don't know them, I love when people are, that I meet, they're just like, I think what you're doing is really cool, no matter their age. I'm like, I just think it's the most humbling thing to be able to know that what you're doing, it's not only for you, but it's for a lot of people, especially in Nebraska or, wherever they're at, that just want to start something. And if you're the reason that they start their business, that's super dope. So
yeah, that's awesome. And it's kind of the same for me, just getting little comments or messages is, kind of what drives me,
sure.
Or keeps me going. I'm just like, okay, I mean, it must be worthwhile to some people, which makes it worthwhile to me. I know you talked about a little bit about, wanting to get out of Nebraska. Have you ever traveled for long periods of time, like outside of or places you've been that you've really liked? Or
yeah, I would totally be down to go to Portland for a couple of years. That's where our travel has their second office. So honestly, anywhere outside of Nebraska would be cool with me. I love Arizona. I think that's where I want to end up long term. I don't know. That's where most of my family's from, and just something about that environment.
Hot and dry.
No snow, which I love. And honestly, just like the art scene down there, it's underrated, but it's really, really cool. I was in Australia for about 2 weeks, I think, earlier this summer, which was really awesome.
Oh, you went with rap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did.
Super cool.
So that was awesome. I have 2 cousins down there, Bondi Effect, just give them a shout out. They're awesome. They make guitar pedals. But yeah, so that was awesome. And I would love to just, before I end up relocating somewhere, I would love to spend 6 months or a year just abroad, doing some cool stuff. So
that's super cool. And like I've always said, and I always think that it's just, travel is the best experience you can get, even if you're just traveling. I mean,
right.
You learn so much about different people, different cultures, even if you're not like heavily interacting with them. Just seeing them can kind of, broaden your viewpoint and, put things in perspective a little bit. I was going to ask you, is there any big art scenes, like you said, you'd mentioned Arizona, is there any national hubs? Portland seems like.
Portland's awesome for sure. I was down there 2 weeks ago, and that was actually the first time that I've been. But whenever you think Portland, you just know that place is filled with these insanely creative, talented people. So I would love to go from this, the Midwest, where you feel like maybe in a sense that could be lacking, and going somewhere that's a lot more competitive, I think would be really good for me. And I think that's really intriguing to me. So I think for sure that would be a good stepping stone.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. One place that actually like kind of that I didn't think would be like was Des Moines.
Yeah.
I mean, I just in my head I was like, fuck Iowa. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
people
not ever going to
people
Iowa.
think that about like Lincoln and Omaha too.
Right.
So it's like, anywhere you go, I feel like would be a great.
Yeah, and I think people come to Lincoln and kind of like, even if you're coming for just football, they take a look around and it's like, oh, there's more than just football here. I mean, the environment that we portray, and there's pros and cons, because like we've been saying, there is kind of that Midwest. There's negatives but there's negatives everywhere, and that now that you've got everything that you can out of Nebraska, I think it'd be cool to go elsewhere and kind of take things from everywhere you go, I guess. So what do you got coming up?
Yeah, I have 2 more shows in October that I'll be at. Scout Dry Goods in Omaha is putting on a fall babe camp, is what they call it. So there's a lot of really cool primarily female-owned businesses that'll do like pop-ups there. So I'll be selling a lot of my screen print goods, t-shirts, prints, just anything involving in my typography. So that'll be really cool. And then I have one more in Fremont coming up. I think in about 2 weeks here, so I gotta start preparing for that. But yeah, so those are, I think, pretty much it until holidays rolled around, where there'll be more like holiday specific shows in Lincoln. So
super cool. So do you sell like merchandise? Do you sell shirts? You said you sell the prints and stuff.
Yeah, I do a lot of my own custom typography, so I love screen printing on those. I do like a lot of tote bags, trying to do more eco-friendly ones. So I think the next round that I'll do, it'll be on all thrifted materials, so different jackets,
super
cool. Sweatshirts, that kind of thing. And then
where can people find those at?
Yeah, so those are all on my online shop, which is on AllieLangDesign.com. Stickers are probably super popular, which I love, just like going into a coffee shop and not knowing someone, be like, oh, that's my sticker, which is really cool. So yeah, I have a bunch of stuff on there that you can kind of look through. So yeah.
Awesome. Instagram handle?
Yes, just Allie Laing Design. Lang has an I in it, which a lot of people forget, so they can't find me on there, but yeah.
So check the description or in the video title to spell that right. And yeah, I mean, anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I appreciate having you on. It was spur of the moment. We didn't really know each other, but I think it worked out well. I appreciate all the 2 cents you've given and all the wisdom and motivation that you've brought to the podcast. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate you asking.
Yeah, no problem. A couple things with Coffee with Demons. I know that I've been saying that there's a meeting in the works for a while now, and there actually is. So October 29th, I don't have a set time yet, but we will be hosting our first Coffee with Demons meeting at, I'll put out the information. It's at Turbine Flats. I don't know a specific time, but I promise it'll happen. Other than that, yeah, just keep checking the website for more stuff. Like, share, subscribe, do what you got to do. Help us out. Help us spread the message. And once again, thank you, Allie. It was great having you on, and we'll call it there.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Coffee with Demons podcast. Don't forget to check out our website at www.coffeewithdemons.com for more information on the Coffee with Demons movement.